In this video, we will discover hybrid switches with the Proneta software, set up an IP address with Proneta, configure hybrid switch management via WebUI, and update the hybrid switch firmware. Before we get started, ensure the hybrid switch is powered on and functioning correctly. Make sure your laptop is connected directly to the hybrid switch. If your current hybrid switch firmware version is 0xxx, a pre-release version, it must be upgraded to version 1.0 first. Only after upgrading to version 1.0 can you upgrade to the latest firmware version. Hybrid switch firmware version 1.0.3 or later should already be downloaded to your computer. Make sure you have downloaded the Proneta software and have Google Chrome installed. Turn off all VPNs. First, open Proneta software. Select Network Analysis. All of the hybrid switches currently connected in the network will show up, even those not assigned an IP address. Right-click the hybrid switch and select Set Network Parameters. From these settings, you can assign the name of the hybrid switch or set the IP configuration of the hybrid switch. You can only change or update one setting at a time. Let's go ahead and set the IP configuration of the switch by selecting the radio button. Enter your static IP configuration. Check mark the Apply Settings Permanently box at the bottom and press Set. The IP settings are now applied to the hybrid switch. Right-click the hybrid switch and select Open Web Browser. Google Chrome will now launch with the hybrid switch's previously programmed IP address. Make sure when logging into the hybrid switch the URL is HTTP and not HTTPS. You can log into the hybrid switch without a username or password. This will give you read-only access. If administrative tasks are needed, contact Cognex technical support for appropriate login and password. Once you log in, you will see this information page about the hybrid switch. Make sure the state of the hybrid switch says Connected. Right next to the state you will see a firmware version. Currently the firmware is a 1.0 and we plan to upgrade it to 1.0.3. Select the software menu. Then navigate to the Install submenu. Press the Select File button. Navigate to the saved location of the firmware. The file extension should end in .ypco. Click Open, then click the Install button. This will take a few minutes for the firmware to load. When both progress bars are at 100%, click the Reboot Device button at the bottom of the screen. After a few minutes, the hybrid switch will power cycle. The hybrid switch has now been successfully rebooted. Back to the hybrid switch web page. The connection status will change back to connected. Verify the firmware has been upgraded to the correct version. The final step is to factory reset the hybrid switch. This will ensure that no settings are carried over from the firmware update, which could cause potential issues. Select the Device Configuration menu, then navigate to the Manage Configuration submenu. Click Reset next to reset factory state. The warning dialog box will appear. Click OK. An information box will appear stating Success, reset to default factory settings. You will need to wait a few minutes as the hybrid switch resets to factory settings. After a few minutes, the hybrid switch will power cycle and then it will reboot. Since the hybrid switch was reset, you will have to open Proneta to locate the hybrid switch and reconfigure your settings. You have now successfully updated the hybrid switch to the latest firmware version.